In the quiet corner of the city, where sorrow hung in the air like a constant mist, lived a mother named Margaret. Her husband, a victim of unsolved street crime, had left her a widow 5 years ago. With courage as her only companion, she shouldered the burden of raising 2 boys, Carlos and Miguel, aged 16 and 18, respectively. Margaret worked tirelessly at the local grocery store, her hands calloused from endless hours of scanning items and dealing with customers. It was a meager existence, but it put food on the table and kept a roof over their heads. The real struggle, however, lay in steering her 2 wayward boys away from the dark alleys that seemed to beckon them with a dangerous allure. The streets held a seductive power over Carlos and Miguel, drawing them into the clutches of a local gang. Graffiti-strewn walls became their canvas for mischief, and the alleyways echoed with the ominous laughter of their newfound companions. Margaret, with her heart worn on her sleeve, saw the ominous signs of rebellion taking root within her own home. Despite her weary bones and tired eyes, Margaret fought valiantly against the tide of influences pulling her sons away. She attended parent-teacher conferences with a hopeful smile, only to be met with the disapproving glances of teachers who shook their heads at the decline in her son's academic performance. The grocery store may have provided sustenance for their bodies, but it couldn't fill the void left by their father's absence or shield them from the allure of the streets. Every night, Margaret would sit them down, pleading with them to leave the dangerous path they were treading on. She would tell them stories of their father, a man of honor and integrity, hoping to ignite the same values in them. But her words seemed to fall on deaf ears as the boys continued to be drawn towards the street gang. Margaret, however, was not one to back down. She spoke with stern authority, her words fueled by a love that transcended her grief. Late nights were spent sitting at the kitchen table, her eyes brimming with tears as she tried to understand the demons that had claimed her boys. She reached out to counselors, seeking guidance and support, determined to break the chains that bound Carlos and Miguel to the dangerous paths they were treading. But the streets whispered louder than her pleas, and the gang's influence tightened its grip on her sons. The grocery store, once a place of solace and refuge, became a symbol of Margaret's struggle, a daily reminder of her inability to shield her boys from the dark forces that threatened to swallow them whole. Margaret couldn't escape the harsh reality that the shadows of the gang lingered over her sons. The brief respite from the city's grip had not eradicated the darkness that had seeped into their souls. If anything, it manifested in more insidious ways, as Carlos and Miguel's behavior became increasingly obnoxious, disrespectful, and violent. The once loving boys seemed like strangers, bearing the scars of their tumultuous journey through the underbelly of the city. Margaret's heart ached as she observed the transformation. Her sons, once innocent and carefree, were now hardened by the harsh lessons of the streets. The gang's toxic influence had etched its mark on their personalities, leaving behind a jagged trail of rebellion and defiance. Conversations became strained as the boys withdrew into a world of secrecy. Carlos' eyes, once filled with the curiosity of a child, now carried a steely resolve that sent shivers down Margaret's spine. Miguel, the older of the two, masked his turmoil with a veneer of indifference, a facade that crumbled only in moments of solitude. The house, once a haven, now echoed with the dissonance of familial discord. The clash between the values Margaret had instilled in her sons and the twisted morality of the gang tore at the fabric of their relationship. Arguments escalated into heated confrontations, and the walls absorbed the echoes of slammed doors and shattered dreams. Margaret grappled with the harsh reality that her sons were slipping away. The gang's poison had seeped so deeply into their veins that even the warmth of a mother's love struggled to reach them. Sleepless nights were spent listening to the distant sirens of the city, wondering if they heralded the inevitable descent of her sons into a life of perpetual darkness. As the family navigated this treacherous journey, Margaret clung to the hope that redemption was still possible. The road ahead was uncertain, and the scars of the past ran deep, but she refused to abandon her sons to the merciless streets. In the face of obnoxious attitudes, disrespect, and violent outbursts, Margaret vowed to fight for the remnants of her family, tirelessly pursuing a future where the bonds of love would triumph over the darkness that threatened to consume them all. As the days wore on, Margaret's heartbreak deepened as whispers of her son's involvement in escalating criminal activities reached her ears. Rumors of stolen goods, illicit drug deals, and brutal gang fights permeated the air like a toxic fog, shrouding the once hopeful atmosphere of her home. Each passing day etched lines of sorrow on Margaret's face, her eyes reflecting a pain that no words could articulate. The city, unforgiving and relentless, seemed to conspire against Margaret's fervent attempts to rescue her sons from the clutches of the gang. The grocery store, once a sanctuary, now became a symbol of her powerlessness, a place where the echoes of the rumors mingled with the mundane sounds of everyday life. As the rumors intensified, Margaret confronted her sons with a mixture of desperation and maternal authority. Carlos and Miguel, however, met her inquiries with defiant silence, their eyes avoiding hers as if unable to bear the weight of guilt. The truth hung in the air like a heavy fog, suffocating the already strained relationships within the family. The storm that raged in Margaret's life showed no signs of abating. The relentless pursuit of her sons by the clutches of the city's underworld had reached a new crescendo. One day, as she toiled away at the grocery store, the peace of the familiar surroundings shattered when the police arrived, looking for Margaret with urgent inquiries about an alleged crime committed by the gang, an accusation that implicated Carlos. The news struck her like a lightning bolt. The very institution meant to protect was now knocking on her door, casting a shadow of suspicion over the family already teetering on the edge of despair. Margaret, with a heavy heart, faced the questioning eyes of law enforcement, fervently insisting on her son's innocence. The police, however, remained skeptical, their official demeanor a stark contrast to Margaret's raw emotion. Carlos, already entangled in the web of the gang's criminal activities, found himself at the center of a storm he could no longer escape. Margaret, torn between the love for her son and the desire for justice, embarked on a desperate quest to uncover the truth and clear Carlos' name. In her pursuit, she stumbled upon a labyrinth of deceit and treachery, with each revelation driving a wedge deeper into her already fractured world. Meanwhile, news reached Margaret that Miguel, her eldest son, had descended further into the abyss. No longer content with mere association, he had become a drug courier for the gang. The revelation added a layer of pain to Margaret's already shattered heart. Miguel, once the protector and mentor for his younger brother, had succumbed to the darkness that threatened to engulf them both. Days turned into weeks, and Miguel's absence from home grew more prolonged. Margaret, haunted by sleepless nights and tortured by the uncertainty of her son's fate, found herself entangled in a web of despair. The grocery store, once a refuge from life's storms, now echoed with the cruel symphony of her broken dreams. As the police investigation intensified, Margaret's world unraveled. The community, once supportive, began to distance itself, unable to separate the allegations against her family from the whispers of criminal association. The grocery store, a symbol of her resilience, now bore the weight of accusations that threatened to strip away the last remnants of her dignity. Margaret's days became a relentless juggling act between her duties at the store and the desperate search for answers about her sons. The once vibrant woman, now aged beyond her years, navigated the murky waters of the city's criminal underbelly, driven by a mother's love and a determination to save her sons from the clutches of a fate that seemed increasingly inevitable. In the shadow of mounting adversity, Margaret faced a choice: to succumb to the darkness closing in on her family, or to rise, battered but unbroken, in pursuit of a glimmer of hope that could pierce through the relentless storm. The city, with its unforgiving streets and watchful eyes, held its breath, waiting to see if Margaret could emerge from the depths of despair and forge a path toward redemption for herself and her wayward sons. The night took a sinister turn as men wearing black bonnets with guns stormed Margaret's house, fueled by the fury of betrayal. The shadows they cast danced ominously across the walls as they relentlessly tore through every room, unturned every piece of furniture, and ripped through the fragile fabric of the family's life. The ruthless search was relentless, driven by a thirst for vengeance that echoed through the hollow corridors. The leader of this new threat, distinct from the notorious street gang that had haunted Margaret's family, revealed himself as a figure more sinister and dangerous. His eyes bore the weight of a ruthless pursuit, and the air resonated with an imminent threat that left no room for negotiation. Carlos, standing alongside Margaret, was paralyzed by the unfolding terror. The men, their faces hidden in the anonymity of their bonnets, issued a chilling ultimatum. If Miguel did not show up with the stolen money, the spoils of his double-crossing escapade with both the drug cartel and the notorious street gang boss, both Margaret and Carlos would face a fate sealed in blood. The twisted tale of betrayal unfolded as it became clear that Miguel, in a desperate bid for freedom and redemption, had double-crossed both the drug cartel and the street gang boss. The stolen money, now a beacon of treachery, became the catalyst for a reckoning that threatened to engulf Margaret's family in a storm of violence. As the men grew increasingly frustrated with their fruitless search, the threat against Margaret and Carlos escalated. The city, indifferent to the turmoil within the walls of that modest home, continued its nocturnal rhythms, oblivious to the unfolding tragedy. In the midst of the chaos, Miguel watched from the shadows, torn between the guilt of his actions and the fear of the retribution closing in. The stolen money, clutched tightly in his hands, felt like a lead weight, a tangible reminder of the choices that had brought his family to the precipice of destruction. A new ultimatum was issued. If Alex did not appear with the money within a specified time frame, the lives of Margaret and Carlos would be extinguished without mercy. In the aftermath of the harrowing night, with the air still thick with tension and fear, Miguel, bearing the weight of his betrayal and the stolen money, sought a clandestine meeting with his mother, Margaret. Underneath the shroud of darkness, in a place untouched by the prying eyes of the city, mother and son met in silent desperation. In hushed tones, Miguel pleaded with his mother Margaret, urging her to recognize the gravity of their situation. He implored her to understand that the only path to safety lay in fleeing the city, escaping the vengeful pursuit of both the drug cartel and the sinister boss who now sought retribution for his betrayal. Miguel, haunted by the shadows of his choices, revealed that the stolen money could serve as a lifeline to a new beginning. He spoke of distant cities, where they could vanish into anonymity, leaving behind the ghosts of their troubled past. The stolen funds, a bittersweet bounty, now represented not just betrayal, but also the key to their salvation. As Margaret listened to her son's desperate plea, she grappled with conflicting emotions, betrayal, fear, and a mother's unconditional love. The city, with its looming skyline, seemed to bear witness to this clandestine meeting, indifferent to the human drama unfolding beneath its towering structures. In a moment of vulnerability, Miguel confessed a truth that added a new layer to their saga. While entrenched within the syndicate organization, he had learned that it was his boss who had masterminded the killing of his father. The revelation hung in the air like a thunderclap, the shock of the truth reverberating through Margaret's soul. Miguel disclosed that, in an act of vengeance, he had double-crossed the syndicate. The stolen money was not just a symbol of betrayal, but a tool to dismantle the criminal empire that killed his father. Margaret, a woman of unwavering integrity, listened attentively to the desperate plan forged in the shadows. Despite the urgency and the seemingly hopeful path laid out by her sons, she couldn't ignore the persistent nagging in her heart, the knowledge that the cartel, relentless in its pursuit of vengeance, would never cease its hunt for them. With a heavy heart, Margaret interrupted the fervent discussions. She spoke with a calm, but resolute tone, urging Miguel to reconsider the dangerous path they were contemplating. In her eyes, a mother's love collided with a sense of responsibility, a duty to uphold the principles of justice and integrity even in the face of peril. Margaret knew that surrendering to the authorities was their best chance at escaping the relentless pursuit of the cartel. She encouraged Miguel to confess his crimes, offering the stolen money as a restitution of sorts. In her wisdom, she saw an opportunity not just for survival, but for redemption, for Miguel to unburden his conscience and contribute to the dismantling of the criminal empire that had wreaked havoc on their lives. With an unwavering gaze, Margaret implored Miguel to divulge everything he knew about the illegal activities orchestrated by the gang within the city. She envisioned a future where the darkness that had plagued their family could be lifted, not just for them, but for the countless others ensnared in the web of the gang's influence. Miguel, torn between the shadows of his past and the glimmer of a chance at redemption, hesitated. The weight of Margaret's words settled upon him, and in that moment of clarity, he saw a different path, one that led not to a fleeting escape, but to a profound reckoning with the consequences of his actions. With Margaret's guidance, Miguel made the difficult decision to surrender to the authorities, offering them information that would expose the gang's illicit activities. The stolen money, once a symbol of betrayal, now became a token of reparation, a chance for justice to prevail in a city tainted by crime. As Miguel faced the consequences of his actions, Margaret, along with Carlos, prepared to embark on a journey to a faraway place, a sanctuary where the shadows of the city's tumultuous past could no longer reach them. Margaret, ever the matriarch, was willing to wait for Miguel's release from prison, knowing that the sacrifice of a few years would pave the way for a future unmarred by the haunting specters of the past. The city, with its ever-indifferent skyline, bore witness to this final chapter of a family's tumultuous saga. As Margaret and Carlos disappeared into the horizon, the city held onto their stories, their resilience, and the enduring hope that even amidst the darkness, the flicker of redemption could illuminate the way toward a better tomorrow.
Thank you. If you found this content educational and enjoyable, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more videos, stories, and narratives.